Hello all, this is Mark from Tushuo.com, where I've endeavored for years to help people become better language learners and teachers. And I'm going to try to record this before it gets too dark and my camera slows down or there's a bunch of blur. Uh, so I've discovered a new way to tell if a company that's targeting Chinese learners probably sucks. This sounds a little extreme, but I've thought about it. So basically there's a decision that has to be made pretty early on, and that is how you're going to store all the Chinese words that you're teaching people or all the text that you're teaching people. It could be done in traditional characters or in simplified characters, and sometimes it's not easy. So let's say I had started a service to help people learn Chinese beyond just my blog, and I'd done this like 5 years ago when I was in Taiwan. I definitely would have used traditional characters because that's what I knew better. That's what all my friends in Taiwan were using, and it was just the natural way to go. But then, let's say most of my customers ended up wanting to use simplified characters. Unlike a few decades ago, it's no longer true that most foreigners learning Chinese are doing it in Taiwan. China is getting it's growing economically and it's getting more open. Um, so it's very likely I'd have tons and tons of people want to use my service that wanted simplified characters. Fortunately, there's something easy I could do, and that is I could just convert all of the files from traditional to simplified, either on a server before I send it to the user or even in the user's browser. And it's not hard to do. Why not? Well, it's because simplified characters came from traditional characters. Before World War II, China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, even Japan all used traditional characters. So only after World War II, the Japanese simplified them into what's now like just normal Japanese kanji, and then mainland China later on simplified from traditional characters again into the simplified characters you see all over China. And there are multiple waves of it. It's a little bit complicated, but the gist of it is there's a simple process because people had to go through it. So people know how to simplify characters, and it was done in a very systematic, clear way. Problem is, going the opposite direction isn't so easy. That's because there are multiple characters that got simplified into single characters. So mian, like bread, or face have the same pronunciation, but they're written differently. Bread had the face character in the right side of it, and the left side of it was a bread radical. It got simplified into the same characters used for face. So if you just see one character, you can't tell if, and a computer couldn't tell or know how to convert it into whether it should be face or bread. There's some even more extreme examples, like there were two different measure words that measured different things that were pronounced zhi, and they both got simplified into zhi, like only, like 只要的 zhi. So, as a result, there are three different characters that all have the same, well, they don't actually have all the same pronunciation, but they're all written the same way in simplified, and they're written as three separate characters in traditional Chinese. Um, as you can guess, you can look at context. It's more computationally expensive, but if you look at context, you can do a better job converting simplified Chinese into traditional. But there are always mistakes, and it's never 100%. And there's some cases where it's actually impossible for it to be 100%, such as when there's a character that can be written in multiple ways for stylistic reasons, like the Thai in Taiwan. It could be written like the simplified Thai, and it often is, even in Taiwan, but it's also often written in the traditional way. Um, so you're basically losing a dimension of the language when you convert from traditional to simplified, which it sounds. I don't mean that part to sound too harsh. I don't hate simplified characters, but if you want everyone to be able to use your service, then you really want it to be set up so that they both get exactly the right characters. And the only way you can do that is if you store traditional on the back end. Um, Additionally, I think, at least in my experience, all of my friends in mainland China who learn Chinese to a very high level even they wanted to learn traditional characters because they started looking at literature. They started learning either Cantonese or they go to Taiwan and like read literature from there, or they sing KTV where all the subtitles are traditional. So I think it's really a pretty simple choice. You should have traditional characters on the back end, and then if users want simplified, then it's easy to give that to them. And if a service doesn't do that, if they choose to make the back end simplified, there are just a massive problems that can happen, especially in the dictionaries, because you'll have multiple different characters that'll be all placed in the same spot in the database because they were simplified into the same thing. And even though their meanings are different, they can get mixed together in the dictionary, even for users that are using the traditional version. And it's a mess. And if a language company is doing that, it's either A, because they don't know this, they don't know what they're doing, or B, they know, but they just figure there are more people who want to learn simplified, and it's going to be kind of broken, but it's good enough, screw it. I kind of understand that from a perspective of someone trying to make a business with limited resources. Totally makes sense. But as a customer, I wouldn't want to learn from them. Um, I think if you see a service, especially if it's not coming out of Taiwan or Hong Kong, where they have traditional characters supported from the beginning, it's a very, very positive sign. And if you see them say, we only support simplified, we'll add traditional later, it's very likely that 5 years from now, they still won't have added it. I'm not going to name any names, but I've been trying out all kinds of language learning startups and services, and I've actually seen this in forums. Like there are some well-known companies that have said, "Oh, we're adding traditional later," and they still haven't, or they have and it's still broken. So that's just my 2 cents. If you see only simplified supported at the beginning, they probably are going to kind of suck, especially if they're doing it in 2015. Doing it in 2005, it's totally different, understandable. Doing it now, they should know better. That's all. Bye.